Everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, AMR pronouns, and it's, unless I've said otherwise until previously, it's our last episode of this month, just because I forgot it was a 5 Sunday month, or totally missed it somehow and didn't have anything planned. So unless I've said otherwise prior to this, in which case you can ignore this, we're taking a break next Sunday. And the only place I would say anything about it not being a break Sunday would be on Facebook. So if you're not following me on Facebook, then that's your loss. Unless, of course, it pops up in your subscription feed and you're like, what the fuck? But anyway, where was I going with that? That was that. So today we are talking about the Major Arcana card of Justice. Dun 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 dun. One of the cards that people don't like. I mean, people don't like Judgment even more, but Justice is another one that... Judgment and the Hierophant are two of the biggest ones people don't like. Justice is another one. Just because most of us who use tarot tend to be in the pagan / new age or new age communities, and we like the free flowing and the but it's all shades of gray, and some stuff is, and we don't like being told things can be black and white, and that some shit needs to be cut with a sword. Hard line, hard rule type deal. We don't like hard lines and hard rules. I don't either. But I also love the Justice card, but I think that's just because it's my card. Well, it's one of my cards. It's Libra. So, I don't know why. I've always liked the card Justice, even though I'm not much of a hardliner. I tend to fall into the gray areas and get very lost in the, well, is this right or wrong, and what should this be, and what should the punishment be? Hallmark of a Libra, they can't make up their mind because they're too busy seeing things from both sides and all other possibilities. Not great judges, I'd say. So, anyway, that's why Justice is associated with the sign of Libra. And if that wasn't confusing enough, let's dive into it. So first and foremost is the numerology of the card of Justice. And for that, I have my Mermaid Tarot. And here, and I took this one for the numbers because she is all in twos. Her tail is split into two, which is a specific type of mermaid, and unfortunately I don't have the book with me, so I did not look that up, even though I should have, and I have my phone right here, and I'm probably going to look that up now. Oof. Nobody heard that, right? Two-tailed mermaids. So, that's right. Okay, so, this is not a mermaid specifically. A Melusine is a creature similar to a mermaid or siren, but is depicted as living in freshwater. It is often shown as twin-tailed. The Melusine comes from French and other European myths and is often depicted in heraldry. The Melusine is a maiden who transformed partly into a siren in water. Hub pages. It's also apparently the Starbucks logo. Okay. Metaproxys. That thing. What's it doing? I don't know. Alright. Historically, that's not what I wanted. So basically, it's a Melusine as a parent. It's not quite a mermaid specifically. Siren forms, turned to dragon, fled. Yeah. There's a lot, but Triton, a mythical messenger and son of sea god Poseidon and Amphitrite, is often depicted as a two-tailed merman. The tails may be depicted as resembling fish or dolphins. In some depictions, he also has legs or hooves of a horse. The Starbucks logo. The logo of the Starbucks coffee chain is a two-tailed mermaid. The logo is inspired by Starbucks based in Seattle and close ties between the city and the sea. The original mermaid is quite clearly quite a close copy of the 16th century engraving. Logo has been revised several times to simplify it and remove any obvious nudity, i.e. nipples, which, by the way, I don't censor nudity. If you hadn't realized by the fact that by now, and the few times I pointed out that, oh yeah, especially when I bring out my mermaid tarot, they got nipples. Those nips are large and obvious. But anyway, that explains. I always thought she was holding sheaves of wheat. They're actually tails. Anyway, moving on. But I like this Melusine because she's two-tailed, so therefore we've got symmetry right there. She's sitting upright. There's an obvious symmetry straight down the middle, like even dividing her in half. And now, granted, we are symmetrical creatures, so you split us in half lengthwise, we'll be mirrors of each other. So, and she's got that very obviously here. One side she's holding a sword, two-edged sword, of course. That's one of the symbols of justice, is a two-edged sword. The other symbol, the scales. These here are perfectly balanced. In some cards, they'll be one's higher than the other, attributing to the fact that oftentimes justice may be black and white and two-sided, but there are gray areas, which is why the scales are often off balance. However, here we've got them perfectly even, perfectly balanced. She's sitting on a stone seat, not quite a throne, stone seat with steps down either side, two pillars behind her, exactly the same. It's such a perfectly symmetrical card. And it falls quite nicely with the fact that in RWS and most contemporary tarot, the number associated with justice is the number 11, which 11 in itself is perfect symmetry. It's two ones, two pillars in the background. So 11 is the number of it's one of the master numbers. It's a commonly agreed upon, pretty much there are master numbers in numerology, and I forget the exact definition of master numbers, but the commonly agreed upon master numbers for sure are 11 and 22. Past that, some people will say every double digit, like 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88, 99 are all master numbers. Some will say only 11, 22, and 33. Some will say only 11 and 22. You get the idea. It's debated. Master numbers in numerology. Let's pass up. 1, 2, and 3. What master numbers? These numbers make up the triangle of enlightenment. Together, these profound energies signify the three phases of creation: envisioning, building, and sharing. So 11, 22, and 33 seem to be the common numbers. Yeah, so 11, 22, and 33 apparently the most commonly agreed upon master numbers. Yeah, building, sharing, envisioning, building, and sharing. 11 is the visionary, 22 is the architect, and 33 delivers it into the world. People with 11s, 22s, 33s in the numerology chart are often put through a great struggle or burden in order to learn the profound lessons that lead to this potential. So master numbers take a long time for a person to well master, so this potential often isn't reached until later in life. The more of these numbers a person has, the more burden they may feel. Patience and perseverance are required, but the reward will be so worth it. So yeah, now they're not always impacting, like if you see it on a clock or a date or whatever. They're a little bit more. They're more important to personal numerology or in tarot. So 11 is highly developed intuition, spirituality. It's a teaching number. It loves to teach. Charisma and dynamism. Ones, as we know, one is the ego, the self, the divine come into being. It's the first physical number. It's the body itself, or not quite the body. It's the first. Yeah. It's basically the body. It's the self. So 2 ones are double the self. So that divinity and being gets doubled. It's that sense of self and body gets doubled, gets expanded. There's more to it. That's why 11 has to do more with intuition, with the gut feeling, with being able to listen and know. And that's where it becomes more spiritual, because you're not just living in the physical form anymore. You're now in your body and able to actually get down and listen into it, as opposed to just, oh, my body hurts. It's like, I'm about to do something stupid. I can tell by the way my stomach's rumbling or something, or the tightness just in my chest, or maybe my foot hurts, or whatever. Being able to tell closely. So there's extreme intuition associated with it. It's very charismatic and dynamic as well of a number, because it's double the ego. It's like an explosion, a doubling of self. There's just much. And because of that doubling of self, it's also very independent. It's very much, this is I independent. Independent, capital I. It's like self alone. Independence, it's self-determination. It's like all about the self, all in the self. And exploring and expanding, because 11 is a visionary. And because 11 equals down into 2, it brings in that sense of 2 as well. 11 includes the energy of a 2. The 2's energy of coexistence, of teamwork and association. So 11 is very independent, but also very much reliant on there being others around. And they're only independent when they have a good support group, support base. They need to teach or to lead a team. The 11s need that following. Those students, they need others around them because of that 2's energy of coexistence. So the 11 of the justice is only useful if there are others with which to enact justice upon. Without others, justice is useless, basically. It's worthless. It's like, and the animal world doesn't have a sense of right or wrong the way sentient beings like us humans do. They don't need justice. Their justice is eye for eye, tooth for tooth. You eat this, I eat that. There's no revenge, no consequences, there's not no consequences. There's consequences, but it's all part of the regular natural flow. It's not you did this that ruined this for me, that messed up this for me, and now I need you to pay because I need retribution. There's no retribution in nature. In non-sentient nature, I should say. So justice is useless without sentient beings, or spiritual beings even. Now, there are 2 numbers associated with justice. And I don't think I got into this with the strength card, but in fact, I can go back and look real fast. Not knocking over this. Knight, Hermit, Strength. I did not get into this with the Strength card. But so I said, like, in RWS-based decks, Justice is the 11th card, and it most commonly is. However, there are some, like in Crowley's Toth, in the Marseille-style decks, and a lot of pip decks, and even on anything that comes kind of from the French school of thought, if it's not Crowley or the Toth decks, if it's Toth-based, or it comes from the French school / European school of tarot thought, which is not RWS, which is English-American school of thought. Well, English school of thought versus French school of thought. There's 2. In the French school of tarot, Justice is card 8 and Strength is card 11. Same with in the French and Toth decks. In English and RWS decks, Justice 11, Strength is 8. So just to kind of cover both bases, and since I didn't do it in Strength, I'm also going to talk about the number 8 as applied to Justice. So Justice is the most active spiritual number. It's in the middle. It's the end of the soul plane. It's the doubling of the Four, so there's structure, but it's structure built up to wisdom, and it's, again, associated with intuition. It's the depth of intuition. It's the doubling of the physical, but into the soul of the plane. So, again, we have that 11 with the spirit. It's similar to the 11, where it's like the 11 is two physical numbers that equal a spiritual number. The 8 is a spiritual number that comes from two physical numbers, or from, a doubling of a physical number, basically. So it's, again, about intuition, about loving action, and about bringing independence into focus. It's like, it's that structure built out, so either of these numbers work well for it. Now, if you're trying to put it into a story flow, it's going to change the story a little bit in the Major Arcana story, but it's still 8 or 11 works about the same for justice. And for strength. That's why they're interchangeable, why we still haven't really settled one or the other. It doesn't much matter. The only reason they get changed is astrology and the Kabbalah. Like, literally how the tarot applies to two other occult disciplines or mystic traditions. That's it. That's the only reason they get changed, is how they apply to astrology or Kabbalah, and which one you're focusing more on in the tarot and its applications. In tarot specifically, if we just look at tarot, doesn't matter which side they're on, whether it's 8 or 11. Really doesn't matter all that much. Unless the only thing it'll really change is the story of the Major Arcana, the hero's journey or the fool's journey or what have you. That's about it. Other than that, it works the same. It's all about dependence, independence with people, intuition, wisdom, higher spirituality, moving up type deal. The next level up of the physical with spiritual brought in type deal. Alright, so that's the numerology. And then the next part is the alchemy. And this is pretty much a direct quote from my alchemy book, The Path of Alchemy, which is where I get most of these from, and I might have actually missed it last month in Cancer. No, I didn't. Okay. Thought I might have. Alright, and the card I have for this is my Supernatural deck, Justice, and this is Sheriff Donna Hanscom, and I thought she just kind of worked perfect for this. Donna is a very, in the show, she's a very loving, wonderful, bright, cheery person who's just, when we first meet her, she is kind of, so she's more on the chunky side. And in the show, she was, when she was first met, was at a weight loss place because her previous boyfriend had left her because she was too fat, which is complete and utter bullshit. And by the end of that episode, she was basically smacking him in the face, which was awesome. Donna is freaking awesome, and second character named Donna that I absolutely adore. The first is, of course, Donna from Doctor Who, who's the best fucking companion ever. I miss Donna so much. And holy, if she had been with 9, nothing would have gotten done. But anyway, so Donna Hanscom from Supernatural, she's kind of a sweet, innocent, but also take no shit. She will occasionally, be unsure of herself and get walked over a little bit, but she grows and she learns not to take shit and to basically put her foot down. And she learns pretty quick too, which is always nice. It's like she was just waiting for permission to learn that yes, you can put your foot down, which is kind of cool. It's like, it's sad in one way because it's like, why were you waiting for permission? But at the other hand, it's like, it was there, and the reason she was waiting for permission is because of how she was probably raised. Minnesota, Midwest, it's kind of that slightly more fundamentalist, conservative area. So, Yeah, so I brought her here for alchemy because, well, I'll read you the quote. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The possible outcomes of every act must be understood to avoid error, accident, and disaster. The habits of mind, emotions, and action developed along the way are the sources of our balanced approach. Donna is not a jump in feet first, don't don't look before you leap. She is a look before you leap. Like, okay, whoa. She will dive head first, and as soon as she's like, gets the green light, she will dive head first into something. Actually, I should say that she's not the leaping in with her feet. I should say she's not diving head first into something completely unknowing what the hell's going on. She wants to know what they're about to do, what the consequences are, what the plan is, and then she'll go right into it. And same type of thing with justice and alchemy. It's like, you got to know what it is you're doing, what is likely to happen, what is the reaction that is going to happen. It's one of the laws of thermodynamics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you punch for example, if you punch a punching bag, you put your fist forward. Okay, pretend this hand is a punch bag, this fist is the fist. So, when your fist impacts the punching bag, the action you're doing is pushing. The reaction, the equal and opposite reaction of that punching bag is it will cave in and move backwards. As you move forward, it moves backwards. Relative to its position, it's backwards. Relative to your position, it's forward, but no, it's equal. It's all a matter of perspective in that case. But as you push, it caves. So you're pushing, it's giving or pulling. It's pulling back as you push forward. Equal and opposite reaction. Every action. It's actually kind of cool. And damn, I really made a fist there. And it's kind of like that. It's like in justice, especially Donna, it's like, what is going to be the most likely immediate action? What is going to be the immediate reaction? What is going to happen exactly afterwards? So she always kind of like keeps her balances, keeps her checks and tallies, and like, whoa, this is dumb. Let's take a second. Step back. Okay, we got our plan? Cool, let's go. So I like her for alchemy. I like Donna for alchemy. All right, next part is the astrology, and as I've already been talking about, astrologically, justice is associated with this astrological sign of Libra. And here in my celestial deck, this card is represented by Hera, the Greek queen of the gods. And you can tell that most definitely by the fact that there's a peacock behind her, and Hera is strongly associated with peacocks. She's got a traditional traditional Greek garb, a blue dress. Well, I don't know how much the cloak is traditional. I mean, assuming it is, but it's a kind of a yellow cloak with red roses all over it. Green vines, rather pretty. She's got her crown on. We've got the symbols of Venus, air, and Libra, as well as the Hebrew letter associated with this card, which of course I forget at the moment. What is it? Apparently I forgot to write down the name of the letter associated with this. But anyway, so Hera is the queen of the gods. So she rules over home. She rules over home and marriage and marital contracts or agreements. So whereas like Zeus rules over oaths and binding agreements, like legal agreements, Hera rules over agreements. Agreements made between people, specific, like, close relationships. So that's why marriage comes in. It's like you agree to do something and you have to hold. It's not Now, sadly, most people won't see those agreements as binding, as say a legal contract in writing, which is why eventually marriage licenses became actual written contracts. But they are still just as binding because you gave your word and your oath, which is why Hera gets upset with Zeus in a lot of the mythos, because he's breaking his marital agreements. But he didn't sign a contract. Well, that's why we now sign contracts. But anyway, I don't work with either of them as Greek gods, so there's some UPG I've heard about some later developments, I guess, but I don't know. We'll get into that later. So Libra is the reason they always associate Libra with justice is because Libra is skilled at solving problems, at compromising and arranging diplomatic solutions to any conflict. Libras don't like conflict. They like things to be peaceful. They like people to see. They are very good at seeing all the different sides, and they want everybody else to see things from other perspectives, and like, hey, the reason he's acting like this is because of this. It's like, the reason this happened is because of this, this, and this. It wasn't just this one thing. It's like this thing. And they're good at, like, you know what, calm down. Let's find all the things and figure out a solution. Balancing the scales. And you see here, Hera is actually holding one of the scales and one of the cups of the scale because she's balancing the scale. She's like, let's do something to actually make this right. Libras have a need to see both sides of an issue and which can make them seem indecisive. Obviously, because it's like, well, yeah, I know this, but also there was this, and that kind of comes from this, and it can just... I'm sure I've done it to many people in my time. I'm sure I've frustrated the hell out of them. And they're just like, just make up your mind. Just agree with it that this was wrong. And I'm like, I can't agree that this was wrong. Well, I can agree that that's wrong, but I also understand why. And they're like, no, who cares about understanding why? It's just wrong. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Like, it can be really difficult sometimes. Or like how some people will... Well, for example, I have a bit of a work situation where a couple of my coworkers can slack on stuff. They don't always want to help other people. They don't want to do more than what what they consider their jobs to be. And when they get told that, yes, this is also part of your job, they can get a little upset because they're like, that's not my title. So, and then they do stuff that it's like, okay, maybe you shouldn't like work together like that all the freaking time. Or they get upset because they'll get upset over small stuff that it's like, you know what, this shit happens. Everybody else gets busy, and it's like, if you have time to do it on another day when you call out, then you can do it another day. And they're like, well, why didn't somebody else do it? Well, because it's your job and because everybody else is full. Well, they can be irritating. And, however, I have another coworker who takes very much strong issue with this, with how they act. However, when he complains about, say, for example, well, they were sitting around shooting the bull. I drove past and they were standing around their truck just talking and stuff. I'm sitting there thinking, yes, we've done that too. When we finished a pool, we'll stand around for 5-10 minutes and talk. You and I have done it. Me and someone else, and me and another coworker have done it. But they were doing it. Or, sometimes just small stuff. It's like, or he will complain about specific things they'll do that I'll just sit there and like, that doesn't sound like something complaint worthy. Or, you know, we've done similar stuff. You've done similar stuff. Other people have done similar stuff. It's like, what's the big deal? Big deal is that he just doesn't like them because of small stuff they do. And so, I agree, they do get on my nerves as well, because sometimes... But at the same time, I'm sitting here like, I'm seeing all the different sides. And that's what Libras will do, which will frustrate other people because they're like, well, you just be on my side. It's like, I can't just be on your side because your side is stupid. So there is to it. It's like, I can give you all the details, you just don't want to listen to them, so can't help you. And that's actually kind of, I like Hera for that, because it's like her side is, in many of the myths, most of them were written down by Roman poets who didn't like the Greeks, so a bit of a bias there. In most of the stories, we only ever see her as the bitchy, jealous, possessive wife who's all pissed off and doesn't want her husband to roam free because her husband was cheating on her. It's like, maybe she has a very good reason to be bitchy, possessive, and jealous. Now, what most people take issue with is the fact that she does not take it out on her husband, but on his conquests, to put it accurately. Often, she takes it out on his conquests as opposed to on him. Now, there are a few reasons for this. One, he is the king of the gods. He's kind of in charge. He's more powerful than her. And also, as much as she might be pissed at him for doing stuff, she can't much do anything against them because that would be literally going against her own self as carrying out her marriage vows. Her vows are to love, probably, I mean, I don't know what her vows are specifically, but if we go based off what most marriage vows are, to love, hold through sickness and in health and yada yada yada, all that. Much as she's pissed at him, she still loves him. And she still holds to their vows. It is important for her to be the bigger person to hold her vows. However, she wants to make sure he doesn't go after these conquests, so she will take them out of his way, and that includes because she is pissed at him, taking out her anger on them, which is not good. You see the conundrum here. There are many different whys and wherefores. But that's part of what Libra does, and that's why she's kind of the perfect representation for this Justice card, because she's stuck in the middle of a major gray area and trying to figure out the blacks and whites that she can and cannot use, or that she can use. It's messy. Justice is messy. We use scales, and even though, and all that is, this is good, this is bad, sometimes bad's more, sometimes the good's more, and sometimes it's sitting there rocking back and forth as we add each thing, is like, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is both bad and good, and then we gotta separate the two, and justice is messy, and complicated, and complex, and many-threaded. So, just like Hera's relationship with Zeus. It's messy and complex and probably a little fucked up, but you do the best you can with what you got, and with what you're given. Damn, I really like Hera for that card. I've never actually really thought about it that much, but saying it out loud, and that's part of why I do this, is because it starts making sense, or it starts making nonsense. Either or, we get it figured out. Alright, so moving on from the astrology into the Kabbalah. Justice rules the path number 22 between Gevurah and Tifereth, which are the Sephiroth 5 and 6. Yes. Alright. And the card I have for this is my vice versa, and we have a kind of a Karen-esque justice lady sitting on a stone throne in a stone temple, holding scales in one hand, a double-edged sword in the other, pointing up as opposed to down, which can have significance in itself. I forget the exact. And actually, for a second there, it looked like her sword didn't have one half of the guard, but it's just a lot thinner against the stone wall. Alright, and behind her is a mural of Isis in her winged aspect, I believe it's Isis in her winged aspect. It usually is, but it might be someone else. And Isis is the mother goddess of Egypt, or one of them mother goddesses of Egypt. And it's interesting to have, again, a little bit with kind of that, going back to the Hera a little bit, that complication of having a mother as the holder of, or as the benefactor of justice. Because raising children can get messy, especially in one of Isis's myths, of the main one she's well known for, where Osiris and Horus. Osiris's death sets a tyrantship, and Horus's birth and subsequent fight. You get the picture. It gets messy and complicated because, one, her husband's dead, but now her husband's brother is ruler, so she can't outright go against him. But she can make her son do that, and that in itself gets complicated, and justice is a messy business. So this justice isn't quite as symmetrical as our the two-tailed mermaid, Mesuline, I think. But there's still a bit of a balance, bit of a symmetry. It's a little off-kilter, but most justice is a little off-kilter. You can't be perfectly utterly balanced all the time. It's very, very rare. Now, on the back side of this, we have the other side of justice. So, whereas the front side, we had the clean slate of what it looks like from the outside. On the back, we see that it can get messy inside. There's a broken sword because it's been used too much. It often has to be used. There are scales that are thrown on the ground because, again, things get used a lot. And they eventually break and crack and wear. And then there's vines growing up around the sword because, out of death comes growth. Everything cycles back around. There's a butterfly, which has to do with both freedom and transformation, liberation. And of course, the back of the throne is the hard side of justice. This is, what's her name? The crocodile goddess who, let me see. What she does is, in the end, let me see. Egyptian crocodile goddess. So Sebek, or Sebek or Sobek. She is the crocodile goddess who, when in the afterlife during the judgment of the dead's heart is weighed on a scale next to a feather, and if their heart is lighter or equal to the feather, they move on to their reward in the afterlife. If their heart is heavier with bad deeds or sins, then their heart and them get eaten by Sobek. So that is a hard side of justice, the punishment of wrongdoing. And it's very symbolic that it's on the back of the throne, that it is carved into the back of Justice's throne, because it is the backbone, the important part, the part we don't want to look at, we don't want to see, because we want to see those who get rewards. We don't really want to see that people get punished too, but it is a strong foundational part of justice. So in Kabbalah, this adds even more to it, because Gevra is severity, the great limiter, the restrainer, the one associated with Saturn, the boundaries and restrictions, who says, no, we need to stop. We can't just keep going. We need to stop and make... we need to discriminate. We need to create boundaries. We need to create a container to hold all this. It's the severity, the punishment. Not so much punishment. It's severe and limited. And Tiferet is beauty. It's the integrator, the balance and harmony. It's Tiferet is beauty, harmony, things, the exact center of the tree of life, the above meeting the below, the severity meeting mercy. It's the perfect exact center where everything comes into perfect harmony. That is where justice likes to be. However, justice is the path between that harmony and severity, the limiter, because justice is about getting things as close to balance as possible, but in order to balance things, you have to limit them. You have to say no. You have to create boundaries. You have to put up a sword, double-edged sword, and say, no, this is my line and you will not cross it. There's severity and boundaries in justice. Justice walks the path between harmony, beauty, and severity and restriction, limits, boundaries, and boundaries to beauty, harmony to severity. That is the path of Kabbalah that justice walks. All right, and the Kabbalistic angel is Kaliel, the invocable god, who is one of the thrones, the third tier down from the top, third out of 10-tier hierarchies of angels. Their psalm is Psalm 35:24, and their powers, they rule over justice, actually. Their main, Kaliel's main area of influence is, in fact, justice. They do make truth known in court, allows innocence to triumph over non-innocence, basically, and confounds the guilty and false testimony so that they can't win. Basically, if they're sitting there, a guilty party with a silver tongue, it's like they might be able to get out, but Kaliel, you can call on Kaliel to confound them so they can't actually tell their lies. So they slip up, they make a mistake. False testimony is found to be false, and the innocent will triumph. They'll make sure the truth is known. So if you're in the wrong and you call on Kaliel to help you win in court, it's not going to work. She's going to sit there, no, it's truth. Truth is all, and you won't be able to lie your way out of something. So, good advice as a witch or as an angelic worker, or basically a witch working with angels of some sort, or something along those lines. Probably not a good idea to call on Kaliel if you're trying to get out of a parking ticket that you were at fault for, because it's not going to work. There's another one I think I've gone over before that you could call on, but I can't remember who that is. Their psalm is 35:24. Those born under Kaliel will possess integrity, love, and truth, and will distinguish themselves in government. Fascinating. So, Kaliel is the sole guardian for those born 5:40 to 6 a.m., the physical guardian for those born June 13th to 17th, and the moral guardian for those born January 19th, April 6th, June 17th, August 28th, and November 8th. Whew, chucking along here. Alright, so our second to last. The being associated with justice, in the Fantasy World Tarot is the Valkyrie. So Fantasy World Tarot, or the Halloween Tarot, Valkyrie standing on a battlefield with the rings behind her, pulling up someone's soul, a dead warrior's soul. Now, Valkyries are from Norse mythology, from the old, most likely from the Old Norse word, or maybe actually from the Old Norse Valkyria. I think it's Valkyria, because I believe their J's are pronounced as Y's, so it's either Valkyria or Valkyrja, or Valkyria, which means chooser of the slain. And so we all know the whole, if you die in battle, you go to Valhalla. The Valkyries take you to Valhalla. There's a little bit more to it than just that. So, first of all, Valkyries themselves are a host of female figures, female warriors, who choose those who live and die. both who live and die, not just, oh, we're flying over the battlefield, oh, somebody's dead, let's go grab him. They literally actually decide before the battle who is going to live and who is going to die. Which is why, if I remember correctly, or most likely, I'm assuming, maybe it's an assumption, I swear I've heard this somewhere before, but I might just be making it up, that Norse warriors would pray to Valkyries and to Odin to take them in battle, like to basically let them die so they can move on to their final great reward, because to not die in battle was to go to hell, the realm of hell, which was just kind of cold and dark and just somber, and it wasn't fun. If they died of natural causes on land, they'd go to hell. If they died in the sea, they'd go to the realm of, I forget the god's name, but basically the sea god's realm, his afterlife, which was similar to hell, and it was just kind of cold and dark, and except for it was also damp and under the ocean, and there might have been, let me double check. Norse warriors who died on water. Okay, Norse afterlife in the ocean. Okay, so those who died at sea, they would reside in the underwater afterlife belonging to Ran, a giantess in Norse mythology. Majority of Norse Vikings are believed to go to Helheim, of course. Or Helheim, yeah. Oh, the same way. Ran and giantess in Norse mythology. That's all it tells me. Okay, so doesn't tell me much about deaths in those who died at sea, but they'd end up going to Ran, who was a Norse giantess. Can't find anything. Anyway. Alright, so those were two OAs, but okay, so we're focused on the Valkyries. So first off, they wanted to die in battle, so they'd pray to die in battle, so they would go to basically their version of heaven, as opposed to just kind of, well, sit around here doing nothing, it's kind of chilly, bored. So they'd pray to die in battle. Now, if they did die in battle, here's the other thing. Only half of them would actually go to Valhalla. So the Valkyries would choose who would live and die, and then of those who died, they'd choose half to take to Valhalla. The Hall of the Slain is the meaning of Valhalla, and there in Valhalla, the dead became the Einherjar, or the once fighters, and they'd feast. The Valkyries would serve them as basically tavern maidens type deal, and they'd get food, drink, they'd party and feast, and then they would fall asleep, and then in the morning they'd get up, they'd go out to a battlefield, and they'd all wipe each other out. They'd do full-on die, bloody, heads chopped off, limbs, blah blah blah, until there was only one left standing or nobody left standing, and then they'd all pick themselves up, dust themselves off, put their body parts back on, and go into the feast hall and feast till they fell asleep. And then they wake up the next morning to do it all over again. And they'd basically been once slain already, so now they could be slain multiple times, and their whole deal was till they do that until Ragnarok, which possibly already happened, or will constantly rehappen. More than likely, the mythology itself is a little, from the stories I have read, it's most likely Ragnarok has already happened once, and then Adam and Eve came, and that was kind of an understanding of Christianization of the Norse, Norse countries and all that. But then, of course, afterwards, after Ragnarok, those who survive, the gods who survive, they come back and they find the chess pieces and they pick them up and they start playing a game and bring back the Norse pantheon again. So it's a constant cycle. So, what time is it? 8:03. So there's a constant cycle going back and forth. So then the other half, those who didn't go with the Valkyries, would actually, they would still go to basically a heaven, but they would go to Freya's afterlife field of Volkvagnar, Vanger? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Volkvagnar. Which was basically similar to the pagan concept of the Summerlands, where it's fields and trees, or the Greek Elysium fields, where it's beautiful and peaceful. It's basically a warm heaven type thing. So that is the myth of the Valkyries, and so kind of perfect for justice in the fact that they would literally choose who lived and died. Justice is about choice, about knowing, and again, halves, symmetry. Alright, so I got two here at the end. So first off, our traditional meanings, and here this is a justice card that is different from others. It's from the Tarot of the Old Path, and it's, instead of a female figure, it's a male figure. Old white man with a white beard, white hair, in robes, thick robes, holding scales, and instead of a sword, I don't actually know what he's holding. It's like a stick with two equal sides. It might be based off a rune or something, and he's kind of the guardian in front of a path that leads upwards towards a shining, I assume it's supposed to symbolize the path leading to enlightenment. It's like you've got to make decisions, what stays, what goes, what stays, what goes, to bring yourself up higher to enlightenment. And behind that, in front of that light, in front of the sun, is an ibis, who is most likely supposed to represent the Egyptian god Thoth, the god of magic and writing and libraries and stuff and such that. So in traditional meanings of the Justice card, upright is being critical and impartial. The Justice card is one of the only major arcana, especially the only ones with a female figure present, that does not have any water. So water in tarot represents emotion and feeling and spiritual. In Justice, no emotion is allowed. This is impartial facts. And this is about being clear-cut and fair and making a move when decision is reached. That's the other thing about Justice. It's about making a move. You have to actually do something. This isn't about sitting there thinking in your armchair and deciding, well, what about this and what about this? Justice is about action. The next movement up, which is why this card is good. You have to make a decision and then go forward. You have to climb the next stairs. Inverse, it's about things being unfair, about being overly emotional about decision, about doing a because I said so argument. It's like, when you get frustrated and it's like, why? Because I said so. Well, that's not really a good argument. I mean, it might work for kids to a degree. It's not great, but to a degree. But it's overly emotional, and it's unfair, and it's not being impartial, it's not being critical, it's maybe going backwards on a decision, it's not really doing anything. Now, there is one small thing I want to have afterwards. Another card I wanted to show you all. This is from my Mystical Cats, and this Justice card is called Consequences. And I think it does work well for Justice in a slightly different thing of, you made your bed, now lie in it. This cat was out playing, decided this string was awesome to play in the garden during fall, and, well, now they're all tangled up, there's leaves and dirt and mud everywhere, and they gotta try to figure how to get themselves out and how to maybe clean their ball of yarn. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. You need to make a decision before you do something. You have to think through the process. This goes back to the alchemy, back to Donna Hanscom. There needs to be consensus reached before you do something. So I like Consequences as an alternative name for Justice for those reasons. Now, does it always work for every reading? No, that's why I read many different cards and multiple different decks, because sometimes you don't need Consequences, sometimes you need Justice, sometimes you need to know, like in this Tarot of the Old Path, there's a decision to be made to move forward. You need to move forward. This is most important here. In the Mystical Cats, it's because you made your bed, now lie in it. If you don't stop and think, something is going to fuck up. Or in just, there's two ways this can go, or in the Melusine, in the Mermaid's Tarot, there's two ways this can go. You got to decide which way it's going to be. All of the above. Alright, so that is the Justice card. You know, these are much better than last month where they were all like 30-40 minutes, but now we've gone to an hour on the first one, and this one is almost an hour. But anyway, that's all I got for y'all today. So, you all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe here on YouTube. Find me on Facebook. Follow me. Email me bagsandomens@gmail.com if you want if you got any questions or you want to read or whatever. You can find me on Patreon if you want to throw some money at me, and in return get early access, because they insist on $3 being the minimum instead of $1. So I try to make sure I get early access, so you get all these videos as soon as I record them, which for the first one it's only a day ahead, but for the rest I record these all at once, so you'll get all 3 of them. Well, commonly 3, 4 if I've got a 5 Sunday month. You'll get all of them all on the Saturday before the first one releases. Saturday-ish, depends on when I actually get them all put in. Might run a little behind on some cases. But yeah, anyway, that's it for me. Y'all have a great rest of your whatever, and I will see y'all next month, or possibly next week when you're watching this, if I actually decide to do something for the 5th Saturday, or 5th Sunday, but most likely not. But anyway, alright, bye.